All right, guys, let me catch you up on where we're at with Project Hellstang. Last Sunday, I ended up trying to diagnose what was going on with this thing because we weren't getting fuel. And so I ended up taking apart the fuel pressure regulator. That was the first thing I was thinking, maybe the problem, maybe the diaphragm had ripped or something, and that was way easier than trying to get to the fuel pump. So we took that all apart, found out the diaphragm looked just fine. Now, I did go and buy an Aeromotive replacement diaphragm because the replacement diaphragm from Aeromotive is about $30, and I figured, it's cheap insurance versus like this whole fuel pressure regulator is about $30, $35 on Amazon. And basically all the metal components seem really good, but the diaphragm, it looks kind of like weird and kind of cheap. And so when I did some reading online, that's where most people have the issues, is just with that diaphragm, tearing, causing an issue. So I replaced it with an Aeromotive, so we got about $60-65 into this regulator compared to like $200 for an Aeromotive, right? So anyway, hopefully that's good. Then next we moved on. At this point I was thinking, okay, it's got to be something with the fuel pump. We ended up dropping the fuel tank and pulled out the pump. Lo and behold, it was kind of what I was thinking it was. The fuel pump, if you guys remember, we had to modify the hanger because we had that big 540 liter per hour pump, so we had to cut the bottom of the hanger off, and then I'd used some stainless steel zip ties to secure the pump into the hanger, and it turns out it just wasn't tight enough. The pump had slid down in the hanger, and then the little rubber hose from the pump to the top of the hanger came loose, and so the pump wasn't pumping fuel into the fuel line, it was just pumping it back into the tank, right? So that was a major issue. So we ended up correcting that by using some actual stainless steel hose clamps, like radiator hose clamps, and those really were able to, tighten the hell out of it. And so it shouldn't move again. Hopefully, got that all put back together real quick, and then we checked it for fuel pressure. Now it is putting out fuel pressure. So that problem is solved. Now, we need to get this thing to Bell Tire to do an alignment because the alignment's really screwed up. And then we've got another few little issues as well, like the exhaust is hanging too low. I need to unbolt some of the exhaust, jack it up, and then retighten it to get it up a little bit higher. We've also got, it sounds like the exhaust manifolds were leaking, so I want to just go and tighten all those bolts just to see if that helps. And then we had an issue where I made the holes in the valve covers for these coil packs to mount to. There's like a big washer on the inside, and I thought that big washer would be enough to stop oil from leaking out. Turns out, no, that's definitely not enough. We were getting oil leaking out of those holes in the top of the valve cover. So I need to pull the valve covers off and then figure something out for the inside, whether it's just putting some maybe RTV underneath that big fender washer, or maybe a gasket or something I can get from like Ace Hardware. But anyway, we just got to do something like that, get that fixed. Also with the suspension, when we did the test drive, the front end was way, way, way off. And so I need to also, I may actually see if I can adjust. Right now we've got way too much like toe in, so we need to toe it out a little bit. And then it looks like these camber plates, they had actually allowed the strut or shock or whatever to move. And so they must not have been completely like super tight. So I need to realign those, really tighten the hell out of those, and then we can get this thing to the alignment shop once all this stuff's done. It's a lot of little stuff. So we'll see. I'm not looking forward to taking off these valve covers either. It looks like that's going to be horrible, especially this side where the alternator is. The alternator is kind of like blocking the lip of the valve cover, and I have studs. So we're going to have to probably remove the studs, to be able to slide the valve cover back. Otherwise, I'd have to remove the alternator, and I think it's easier just to take the studs out. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to work, get this thing jacked up. All right, so the first thing I'm going to tackle is I'm going to go ahead and loosen these guys, and you can see just how how much they moved, right? So you can see where, hard to tell by the camera, but like where the 0 is, it's touching this bolt, and where this 0 is, this one's still pretty much perfect, right in the middle. So this one moved a little bit, so we definitely need to correct that. But the other side, that one's really bad, where it's gone, the one side's like almost all the way moved up. So yeah, you can see, or this one is, right? This one's like almost all the way slid, and this one's still back. So both of these need to really get corrected, and then this one just needs a little bit of adjustment. Then we'll see if we can fix this toe problem and just give it, a few turns out each way, and then just to see if it makes it better, because it was so off. You guys ever seen this? That is freaking tire tread from the front tire. It's like you did a burnout. But this alignment stuff just was so off. I mean, the tires were howling. And these are brand new tires, so I mean, we don't want to mess them up, but it's also just a few miles. It's not a big deal. But I just want to get a little bit closer, and then we can get it to the alignment shop. And yeah. All right, so adjusting these things is pretty dang easy. I didn't even have to take the wheel off. Just I had the car jacked up. I was able just to move the wheel and kind of push on this thing. So we've got these lined up now. The wheel already looks way better, but you can still see where it's just got, I think, a little bit too much toe. So I think I'm going to crawl under real quick. We'll see if we can give this a couple turns on each side, and just at least get it just slightly better. But hopefully now that these are really tight, we should be good. These are loose enough where I was able to just get them off with that little gun, and, my little ratcheting wrench. And this thing's like, I don't know, maybe 35, 40 foot-pounds or something. So, probably not tight enough for sure. So I, took my regular wrench, really cranked those down. So they should be good. Now we can at least get to the belt tire, have those guys adjust it. So okay, let me get under here. Let's see if we can fix this, because I don't know how well the camera picks it up. But yeah, you can see how the back is certainly sticking out, and it's towed in. Now this is also a Fox body K member, and if I remember right, the guys told me because it's Fox body, it'll make the track width in the front, I can't remember if it was like 3/4 overall or if it was like 3/4 per side. So that means the tire would be sticking out farther, right? Because the location for the mounts and stuff is out farther. So that's kind of why I think we have a little bit of this kind of poking out. So, but if we get a little bit better, that should get it a lot closer. All right, so hopping under here, let me show you guys what we did. So on our little tie rod here, I put a little paint marker line just so I could see, where it was as I spun it. And wait, it spins this way actually. Anyway, I did 4 spins, and looks pretty good. I did have an issue with like my boot sticking, so I just spray some WD-40 in there. And then when I was moving it, it actually ended up ripping the boot. So I got a little zip tie holding it on there, should be good. But anyway, 4 turns. And now looks a whole lot straighter. So it looks like, if anything, it does, still have a slight toe in, which is what you want. But yeah, it looks pretty dang good now. So do 4 turns on the other side, and then we'll keep rocking and rolling. All right, both these wheels are looking pretty good now. And while I got the car jacked up, I was just thinking about it. I need to still put on this passenger side splash shield. So I think we're gonna get that bolted on real quick, just get this wheel off. And then I know we did break a few clips, or maybe just these 2 smaller clips or something when we took it off. So anyway, I bought this a while ago, but I got this kit off Amazon. It's just got a whole bunch of like different clips for cars, because I always feel like I'm breaking clips whenever you're removing this 20, 30-year-old stuff. So this just got a whole bunch of different stuff. So we'll be able to use that to get this all back on, and yeah, should be real quick. So let's get that blown on, and then I think I'm going to move to probably what's going to take the longest, which is going to be these valve covers, because if I have to RTV, that's going to take a long time too. So I kind of want to get that knocked out, and then while that's drying, then we can move on to the exhaust. All right, wheel well is all wrapped up, so now we're going to move on to getting these valve covers off. I'm really not looking forward to this. For this side, I think the lip of this valve cover goes under the alternator. If I remember right, I had to like put this on first and then put the alternator on after. But I don't want to take the alternator off, so I think we're just going to pull the studs out. We'll get the nuts off, we'll pull the studs out. I don't think the coil pack, this whole assembly, will come off the valve cover, because there's like kind of so much tension on the bolts and stuff. If that's kind of what I remember. It was really, really tight. So I'm going to leave it all together, just get the bolts off, get the studs out. we should be able to lift this thing off. It's got the reusable Felpro gasket, so we can reuse that gasket. That should all be fine. And then we just get over to the workbench, look at the underside, find out kind of what's going on. If we can just put some RTV underneath this the fender washer that's on there, or maybe get a gasket or something. So get that figured out. I think this is going to be the hardest side since we got to pull the studs, but this other side should be a little bit easier. I think we do have the AC stuff in the way, so that's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to work around, but so much stuff in here, man. For all the guys that get rid of the AC and the power steering, man, God bless you guys, because you guys got so much more freaking room to work. Like, all this stuff just sucks to work around, man. So, but we're going to get it done. Let's do it. All right, so actually this side ended up being pretty easy, even though we had to do the additional step of taking the studs off because there's nothing above the valve cover, just lifted right out of there. This one was a little bit of a pain in the butt. It was hitting this AC line, and so I was trying to disconnect it, but could not get that thing disconnected again. I don't know how the hell I ever did it the first time, but anyway, I ended up just taking all the coil packs off of the bracket, and then that gave me enough clearance just to be able to kind of manhandle it out of there. So now we got them on the bench. And so you can see kind of what's going on is I've got these little washers here, and I was thinking that, you know, the washer with the bolt, like that would be, you know, cool enough to keep any kind of oil from coming out. But you can see on this one, it did not, right? Once we were driving the car around, it was building a lot of oil pressure. It was just shooting that right out of there. So we definitely need to get some kind of like gasket material. I've got some black oil resistant RTV, so I'm kind of thinking about we're just going to loosen it, kind of put some RTV on the underside and even maybe like through where the bolt hole is, right? And then put the bolt back through, tighten everything up, and then that should give it a pretty good sealing surface. So I think that'll be what we're going to do. Clean everything up too. I got to get some brake clean, get it all clean, and then we can fix it. All right, so we'll see how this holds up, but basically I just took the bolts out, I put some RTV underneath it, then shoved the bolt through with the washer so it's underneath it and probably kind of through the hole, and then I just took my finger, smeared a little bit more on top just to kind of be safe. So I think that should be cool. I'm gonna do the other one, and then we can get these things back on the car. You know what, while we're waiting for these valve covers to dry, I'm actually going to go in here with my wrenches and just try to see if I can tighten these exhaust manifolds on both sides. Last time when it was running, when we finished tuning it, it sounded like maybe we had some like kind of a leaky header gasket is what was sounding like. We were getting some ticks coming out. So I'm going to try to tighten it. I think it was mostly this side, but I'm just going to see if maybe this came loose. Fingers crossed, because I really don't want to take this apart until like the winter time, because to get these manifolds off, man, I think all this stuff's got to come off. What a pain in the ass. So I'm just going to try to tighten them real quick. Hopefully that helps. And then we'll get under the car and start moving around some of these clamps that are dragging on the ground. And then I've really got to lift up this back portion here. That's what's really hanging low is, yeah, kind of this part here. So that's the lowest part. But I need to just loosen it, jack it up, and then retighten it upwards. And I think that'll work. And then this part might have to get spun a little bit. And then there's some bracket over here that just got to get spun. And then that should be about it. Once we get all that back together, that's going to be a pain in the butt, but all right. All right, so I think good news is these bolts just work themselves loose a little bit, so I got them all tight. A couple, like this end one was like, you know, really pretty loose. I think this one was loose. So I tightened all that, tightened the other side as well. So I'm hoping that's all it was. I think maybe initially when I tightened it, I figured, it doesn't need a whole lot of torque, and I just didn't torque it enough. So now it should be pretty tight. Hopefully, you know, it's had a few heat cycles as well. So hopefully that will, you know, keep it tight. We'll have to see. But that's all good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get underneath the car, try to get this exhaust a bit higher, and then I'll show you guys the results. All right, the exhaust, man, took, you know, just a bunch of tedious crap like it always is, but I think it looks a lot better. So this was the portion kind of right where it goes to the mufflers. This was hanging real low, and so now you can see it's in line with our subframe connectors. The only thing that still I'm a little bit concerned about is our downpipe, but there's not a lot I can do about that unless I cut this downpipe shorter and reclamp it. That's going to be a whole nightmare. So I'm going to see if that's going to be okay. I did move, like you can see where I rotated up the little, the V-band, like where you tighten it, because that was facing down. So that gave us like, we lost like an inch of clearance versus how it is now. So I did that on both of those. So that should give us some clearance. So before I raise the car up with the coilovers, because I do like how it sits in the front, I'm going to leave it. We'll see if this works. If not, then we can raise it up. But otherwise, I think this is all good. It's much better. So that's good to go. It's been freaking at least an hour, so probably longer than that. But so we can go ahead and put on our valve covers and then call this day a wrap, because it is freaking getting hot out there. It's gonna be like 85 today, so I want to go get in the pool. All right, we got it all put back together, looking good. Went back together real easy. So that's freaking awesome. So got a whole bunch of stuff done today. It was a pretty productive Sunday. So we got our suspension kind of fixed up. So now we can hopefully drive without any more issues to Bell Tire. So that should be good. We got our valve covers sealed up, hopefully they're not leaking. Hopefully we didn't cause any additional leaks. And then we also were able to get the suspension tucked up under the car. So again, when I drive it to Bell Tire, hopefully tomorrow, to get an alignment, you know, there's no real big issues with scraping and all that stuff like we had before. So I'm gonna wait till tomorrow and we can start the car. Just wanna give that RTV, you know, a full 24 hours to kind of harden up. And then I can start the car tomorrow, set the fuel pressure, and then I should be able to drive this thing and go get an alignment, as long as it's not raining out. Fingers crossed, because I could put the hood on too, I guess. But fingers crossed, and then, dude, once we get an alignment on this thing, I mean, it's basically drivable. You know, it should be drivable, at least just cruising around, just taking it easy on it. And then I need to schedule some dyno time, hopefully in the next several weeks, get this thing on the dyno, get it fully tuned, and that'll be freaking awesome. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss any new videos, and check out some of the other videos. We got like 100 videos on this car build, and plus we got, you know, the death car build. Check that out. America. So we'll catch you boys on the next one. Take care.